Hello, my name is Hannah McCormick, and this is the Midwest turned Pacific Northwest culture and counseling. I grew up in the Midwest, where the motto is to produce rather than to be conspicuous. Uh, in 2019, I moved to the Pacific Northwest, specifically Portland, Oregon, and the motto there is to keep Portland weird. The town I grew up in the Midwest was 600 people. It was very small. It was a farm town, and Portland has like a million people. So these are two very different cultures, and I believe that I'm become a very good blend of both of them, but it's still very interesting to have both of those cultures in my background. So the verbal and nonverbal communication styles for both are pretty different. In the Midwest, they're known as Midwestern nice. They're known to be more extroverted, and they're more likely to be more friendly and agreeable. They'll wave at everyone. They'll talk and have random conversations in Walmart. Um, while the PNW is a bit more mind their business, a bit colder. And that is quite different. The Midwest nice, however, is also known for being passive aggressive. They often will mask their feelings or frustrations with someone in order to not have to confront or have to say something negative to someone. They'll just hide behind that, and it also often comes off as passive aggressive. Pacific Northwest, they just kind of stick to themselves, stereotypically at least. And then there's also like a few linguistic differences that I for sure noticed when I moved here. Like food trucks in the Midwest are food carts in the Pacific Northwest. Um, there are others that you just learn as you get here, but may not be known throughout the country. There are a lot of things to be proud of from the Midwest. Um, the first one would be the value of community. There's a very strong sense of community, especially in the small farm towns. When things happen, like bad things, people take care of people. When I was in eighth grade, one of my best friend's brother died in Afghanistan. And when they brought him home, the body, everyone in my town was there. There was a huge line of cars from people from other towns. Um, that all the towns in the Midwest are very close to each other, and that's not necessarily normal in the Pacific Northwest. So all of these communities and expanding, they're there for each other, and it's beautiful to watch when it happens. Um, Another thing that I'm proud of is immigrant success. The town that I grew up in was near the town of Champaign-Urbana, where the University of Illinois is, and there are a lot of people from other countries that come to go to school there and be successful, and that is amazing to me. And it's not really acknowledged, which I will talk about soon. But half of the Midwestern states in the past 20 years have experienced more than 50% growth in their Asian American populations. And that is amazing as well. It's not something that people think about very often. They have a remarkable history in the Midwest. It's also diversity, which a lot of people don't think when they think of the Midwest, but African Americans make up just under a third of Chicago's population, and Chicago's the third biggest city in the country. Nearly half of Detroit's residents are Arab Americans, and Minneapolis, St. Paul has the country's biggest concentration of Somalis and Hmongs. What could be improved upon is what I had mentioned before. The the amount of immigrant success, and like even acknowledging that there are a lot of Asian American immigrants and immigrants from other countries in the Midwest is not something that happens very often. And I think that that could really be beneficial for cultural awareness, not just in the Midwest, but also with helping with racial issues that happen in the Midwest. I know that it's not in school curriculums, and if kids were learning more about what was going on, that would probably help a lot, just to be aware, along with praising all of the immigrant success that does happen that comes from the Midwest. There are a lot of stereotypes of the Midwest that I have found and have heard in my life. One is there's no diversity, which we just covered. I just believe it's important to note that the Midwest isn't just 100% white people. There's plenty of other people in the Midwest. The Midwest is a flyover country. That's something said all the time. And there the Midwest is flat and there are a lot of cornfields, but there are also many beautiful things about the Midwest that need to be that should not be looked over. There are sunsets, which you'll see in the picture in the next slide. There's rivers, there's hills, there's lakes and woods, and there are plenty of beautiful things to look at. The Midwest is super conservative. That is not true. There are plenty of progressive people in the Midwest, and that can be found in anywhere. Just like in the Pacific Northwest, not everyone is liberal. There are plenty of conservative people in the Pacific Northwest as well. All Midwest food is fried and dipped in ranch. That is a lot of the food, yes, but it is not all of the food. There's deep dish pizza and corn on the cob and catfish and green beans and many cheese curds, I guess, are fried, but cheese in general. There's a lot of different foods in the Midwest. Everyone is a farmer. That is many people's job in the Midwest. It is a farm area, but it is not everyone's job. And the idea that no one is educated or cultured, I when I lived in the Midwest, I got 2 degrees. And almost everyone that I grew up with and know has gotten at least 1 degree, if not 2. So they are educated. They might just like to live in the Midwest. There's a lot of stereotypes that people just have nothing going for them and they live in small towns, and that isn't true. Some people really enjoy the small town and community living. Stereotypes held within the Midwest. Life does move a bit slower in the Midwest than in the Pacific Northwest. It is a farm. There's a lot of farms. There's a lot of small towns and that's just not the same feelings as cities or the Pacific Northwest. There's it's just how it is. It's much smaller or slower living. A lot of people like that. And the sense of community and the fact that they're very genuine with helping and caring for people. The culture's view on substance use. Obviously, both the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest have their issues. The Pacific Northwest has a huge amount of homeless people who have drug issues, but also just in general drug issues. It's also legal here to do a lot of the different drugs, whereas in the Midwest and many of the states, it's not legal there. Like when I was in Missouri, I remember people stole a truck to make a meth lab. That happens in both places. Both places have their share of issues with drugs. For alcohol, my experience in the Midwest was dependent on the church denomination. So I grew up in an Assemblies of God church my whole life, but I also went to a Lutheran church for school for kindergarten through 12th grade. And I also had Catholic friends. And Lutheran and Catholic churches, they were fine with alcohol and they drank alcohol a lot. And the Assemblies of God church did not drink alcohol at all. So it really was dependent on what church you went to. When I moved to the Pacific Northwest, that was not a thing that I have noticed yet. Pretty much everyone drinks alcohol that I know. If they don't, it's because of an addiction problem, or they just choose not to, I guess. But it's really culturally more prominent, I believe, in the Pacific Northwest for alcohol. Counseling culture, the experience I had in the Midwest was that it was good for others and not for them. That is the view that my family had. That is the view that I still see. And also I find that there's a lot of people who are also against it. In the Midwest, where my family lived, when I was younger, I was molested, and my parents and grandparents immediately worked to get me into counseling, and they still believe that that is not something that they will do for themselves. They will say things like, they don't have any problems. What would they even talk about? What would that person even do for them? But they always made sure that me and my sister and my cousins would get counseling if something happened to us. In the Pacific Northwest, there are a few more areas where counseling is not something that is normal. I was a school social worker last year in a small town outside of Portland, and they decided that they did not want more mental health help. And there was somebody on the school board who frequently made comments that he didn't want his kids on the couch getting help from a mental health person. So I've seen a lot less support for counseling, or not wanting it to put it on their kids in the Pacific Northwest. But I've also met so many people who are very open about going to therapy. So it's very mixed depending on the person and where they grew up and what. I haven't found a specific culture that fits everyone about counseling. It just depends. Connecting outside of my culture and also within my culture is I included that in the same one because I think it's important as counselors that we're able to connect with our clients one way or the other, whether we're in the same culture or not. Obviously, if you have the same culture, that gives you an immediate like bonding moment or something that you can connect with them on. But if they don't share the same culture, I think it's still important that you can find something to connect with, because we're human beings and we're going through this together. But that being said, I did grow up with in a very diverse group of people in the Midwest, and since I moved to the Pacific Northwest, I can also connect quickly with people who have made the move from that far away, and I have those things in common with them. If they aren't from the Midwest and they haven't made a huge move, I can still find ways to connect with them, whether that's, a TV show that we like or something like that. There's many different ways to be able to connect with people. And here's my references. Thank you.